Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Vikings Now. Your Minnesota Vikings now 4-0 on the year. Jim Rich along with Pierre Noujaim. Ahmad Hicks actually has a legitimate excuse for not joining us because he was at Lambeau today as the Vikings took down the Packers. But Pierre, first half, second half, holy buckets, what a ride they took their fan base on as the Vikings prevail by 2.
Yeah, what a game this turned out to be. And really, for me, what stood out was it was the offense really doing a big part today. I mean, the defense played well, don't get me wrong, 4 takeaways is 4 takeaways. But offensively, I thought they looked balanced. I thought Sam Darnold looked good, save for one throw. And this team, Jim, more and more with each passing week just looks balanced, complimentary, like we've been talking about all season long so far. I think it's time we stop thinking, well, prove it to what's left to prove at this point. 4-0, right. And then especially the way the last 3 games have gone. I know Kevin O'Connell and the staff probably didn't love the way that second half played out for the Vikings today, but all's well that ends well, and the Minnesota Vikings are 4-0.
Well, I think the big reason for that rush of tide in the second half by Green Bay was that muff punt at the end of the first half. Mm-hmm. Really, Naylor should have just let it go. Let it go into the end zone, whatever. You're up 28-0. Even if they down it at the 1-yard line, who cares? You know, they'll run out the clock, get to the locker room, up 28. No way would Green Bay have had that same spark had they not had the combination of that late touchdown at the end of the half. And I'm sure they went in and they said, look, we're getting it right away. We put it in the board. All of a sudden, it's a 2-score game, and we basically have a whole half to work with to eat up that final 14.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate mistake there by Jalen Nailor. I think it was fighting the sun a little bit there. A little bit windy out there.
It was windy, I think, more than anything, because it sailed over his head.
Definitely windy out in Green Bay today, and that's one that he'll learn from. You want to get away from that in that situation, and I think you're totally right. In that moment right there, it felt like with everything going absolutely right for you, it just takes one play to suddenly shift momentum. And thankfully for the Vikings, they held Green Bay off the scoreboard in that third quarter, so it was still 28-7 going into the fourth, but that turned into a wild fourth quarter. Minnesota really doing its part, but Green Bay really came in hard. But again, Minnesota, I'm not going to say they were fortunate to come away with the win today. I think they definitely earned today's win. So I think Vikings fans have a lot to feel awfully good about, especially after today's performance.
All right. Again, we don't need to go over my Sam Darnold dissertation that he should be re-signed, but he just continues to reestablish why I think the Vikings should sign him. If you want to look at it, go back to the previot episode and the episode before that. We laid it all out there why he should be re-signed and extended. All right. What about the defense? You remember last year, Cincinnati found something and lit up that Vikings secondary. Did today's second half remind you anything of that Christmas debacle that we witnessed? Or was there something that you saw that was a concern, or was it more the team saying, we're up 28, I don't really need to go kill this guy to, drive the point home, and we're just trying to get out of there and finish the game?
No, I don't think it was that at all, especially when you look at the way they played against the Giants when they were up big. They're up big against Houston last week as well. This team has not taken its foot off the gas in any game that we've seen so far. I don't think concern is the right word, but when you're up 28-7 going into the fourth, it's going to be a passing down situation on nearly every play because Green Bay has got a lot of ground to make up for being down 21 going into the fourth quarter. So that Jordan Love is going to be back in the pocket looking for somebody to pass to, and yet Green Bay was able to find holes in the secondary in that fourth quarter. The chunk plays came, and they got lucky. The Vikings got a little bit lucky, especially in that fourth quarter, when Jordan Love found Wicks. I believe it was Wicks for a big gain. It was a gain of 38, and then on the very next play, Love throws, I don't know what he was looking for in the end zone right there. He throws an interception into the end zone, and the Vikings catch a huge break in that moment. But holes were found in that fourth quarter, in the secondary, in the passing game. So when it's coming, you're able to pin your ears back and play a little bit, not better, I should say, but you have an idea of what to expect in those certain situations. I don't think the Vikings were surprised by anything that came their way in that fourth quarter in particular. So I think in that instance, I kind of said to myself, that's a little, again, I'm not going to use the word concerning, but that caught my attention. Yeah, that certainly caught my attention.
Well, the Vikings went into this game leading the NFL in sacks. I think it was 16, the number. They only got one today. Yeah. And as you said, they knew what was coming in that second half, that it was going to be all on Love. It wasn't going to be, we gained 4 yards on that running play. No, it was all about trying to open it up as much as possible, which meant the quarterback was going to have the ball a lot. And for the Vikings, they didn't sack him once. I think in the second half, that sack came in the first half.
Yeah, it did come from Patrick Jones with another sack, by the way. I believe that's
five
or
six.
Yep.
Five.
5 sacks for Patrick Jones. What a start to the season he's had. And Jordan Love finished with 54 pass attempts. 54 pass attempts. And going into this game, Jim, I thought, because there's been so much talk, you've seen it not just on our show, but just nationwide, when people are looking at this Brian Flores defense and what they're doing to mask and disguise coverages. I thought that Matt LaFleur was going to be coming into this game with a run-heavy approach, because if you want to take some pressure off your quarterback and try to get that defense to really start thinking twice, I think you got to establish a really good run game. And they have a really great back in Josh Jacobs. But with the way the first half went, the game got away from Green Bay early, and they had to abandon that game plan because, again, they had a lot of ground that they had to make up. And I think that's really where Green Bay got themselves behind the 8 ball in the early going. That didn't really work out to their favor. But I thought that Matt LaFleur's game plan was going to be a little more run heavy in the beginning. I thought we were going to see a lot more Josh Jacobs than we saw. Didn't really work out that way, given with how the pace of this game turned out to be.
Yeah, because it just accelerated so quickly and got away from them. But do the expectations now change? With the Vikings 4 up in the win column, and they're 3 up over Green Bay. As you know, Vegas, friends of yours, they had Vikings at 6.5, 7, and really nothing was expected of this group. Mm-hmm. So internally, they may have thought we're going to be better than that.
I'm sure they did, yeah.
But what happens from here? What do the Vikings look at now? They got the trip overseas coming up next, then the bye.
Yeah.
So where does O'Connell and Kwesi want to change anything or fix anything or change the message on the chalkboard in the locker room?
Well, I don't know if much really has to change. I know that Sam Darnold, like we said earlier, made an inadvertent throw today when it looked like the Vikings were going to score another touchdown and really put this game away. That was an untimely turnover. The fumble that he lost wasn't necessarily his fault. He got hit from his blind side. Never saw the rush coming.
Blasted.
Yeah, and lost the ball in that way. So turnovers, again, we go back to last season. That was a problem for this team. We've seen it from time to time so far this season. They did turn the ball over 3 times today. That's probably not going to get talked about as much considering they're +1 in the turnover ratio in today's game against Green Bay. But to answer your previous question, yes, I do think the expectations have to change. The expectation for me now at this point, when you start a season 4-0, it's if you don't make the playoffs at bare minimum after starting a season 4-0, that's a catastrophe. That's a catastrophe. Something really had to go wrong for you. Maybe they, heaven forbid, an injury bug occurs. The injury is a part of the game. It's going to happen for every single team. But when you start a season 4-0, you are now head charging into the playoffs at this point because you have so much in front of you. The margin for error gets a little bit wider. You now have a leg up on Green Bay after winning today's game. You still have to play Detroit a couple of times. You have to play the Bears a couple of times. Those games are obviously going to count for big occurrences going down as the season progresses. But at 4-0, if you don't make the playoffs after starting 4-0, oh man, something went terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, and this I think is their Vikings' best start since 2016. I think it is.
First time they were 3-0 in 2016. So I believe 2016.
So it kept going, and I think if my memory serves me right, they went like 5-0, 6-0, and then ended up cratering in the second half.
Right. And we said, like I said, we mentioned this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was 2009, if I'm not mistaken, when I was working in Colorado. The Denver Broncos, in their first year under head coach Josh McDaniels, they started 6-0. They finished the season 8-8, missed the playoffs. So it's not like anything is automatic at this point, too. Plus, that is different back then. We have an extra game to play. We got 17 games to play now. So nothing is automatic just because you start the season 4-0. But I feel comfortable in saying that if you don't make the playoffs after starting the season 4-0, that's a failure. That's a big-time failure.
The return of Aaron Jones to Green Bay. He had this circled, no doubt, the first day he got let go and signed here. He looked right away to see when the Vikings would be coming here. 22 carries, 93 yards for him, and didn't get into the end zone, but you can't blame O'Connell because he gave him plenty of cracks at trying to knock down that door.
You know they were trying to get him in the end zone today. They were really making that effort to get Aaron Jones into the end zone. And like you said, no score for Aaron Jones. However, nearly 140 yards from scrimmage. And,
yeah, four catches, 46 yards.
Catching passes, running the football effectively, averaged over 4 yards a carry today. He's just been a breath of fresh air here, hasn't he? Especially with how the run game was last season, how things really played out offensively for Minnesota in terms of running the football. But that part right there to me, Jim, is what has helped Sam Darnold so much.
Because absolutely. 1,000%.
You have a run game that's effective, and it opened things up so much more for you and the confidence that you have in the run game. And for a quarterback, that's your best friend right there, is to have a great running game. And right now, Minnesota is doing just that. That's really opened up a lot for them offensively.
Absolutely. I mean, I told Aaron Jones when I talked to him at the start of the year that I said, you're going to be the most valuable part of this Vikings offense. Because you have the standouts on the outside and Hawkinson when he gets back. But if that quarterback has no time, and the Viking offensive line in years past have been a real problem, those guys have been just ridiculous. Yeah. When Darnold goes back to pass, he's got 4, 5, sometimes 6 seconds before he has to decide what he wants to do with the ball.
Saw him scramble a couple of times today as well, did Sam Darnold.
Picked up a couple of running first downs. And, he's showing the vision here. And like you said, he's been plagued by mistakes at his other stops.
Yeah.
And there were other circumstances. We're not putting it all on him. But that was the biggest thing that I think Kevin O'Connell wants him to do. He knows he can play the position. He just wants him to learn how to think the position and not make too many bold decisions that blow up in your face. You don't have to when you have a defense like this, when you have a run game like this, that you're going to have opportunities to make up for a 3-and-out later in the game.
And I think, and this, I don't want to say it this way, but the unfortunate nature of J.J. McCarthy's injury really, I thought, gave Sam Darnold the opportunity to think to himself, okay, I don't have anybody breathing down my neck, which I don't think there's anything wrong from a bird's eye view. Don't get me wrong. I don't think there's any problem with somebody worrying about breathing down their neck. This is the NFL. It's competition at every single position. Unless your name is Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, like the elites of the elites that we know are going to be the starter week in and week out, I don't see anything wrong with competition at every position, including quarterback. But in this instance, with Sam Darnold coming in as a bit of an unknown in terms of we've seen what's happened at the other stops, but didn't really play last year in San Francisco. So yeah, he is coming in as a bit of an unknown, but he's got something to prove. And now he doesn't have anybody. He's not looking over his shoulder thinking I'm going to get replaced. I think that's gone a long way in terms of building his confidence and playing the way he has.
And clear his head.
Yeah.
He knows if he has a couple of bad series that the hook is not there.
Right.
And McCarthy comes trotting in, especially if it's a home game and the Vikings start out with a putrid first quarter, nothing happens, 3 3-and-outs, and that U.S. Bank Stadium, yes, you people watching would be chanting, "We want McCarthy, we want McCarthy."
Yeah.
That doesn't exist, so that's got to help him clear his head.
To use a hockey reference, when you have a goaltender who's let a few in, sometimes a couple of soft goals, you start to look over at the bench a little bit. And we've seen it happen in the NHL time and again with some of these goalies who, have been great, but suddenly things start not to work as well. You're kind of looking for your game, and before you know it, you're getting the hook. So I think that it's a fair comparison from that to how things are right now for Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, we have to find something controversial out of this. So, this is why you click, because you need something. Yes.
Okay.
Is Justin Jefferson underutilized?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow.
How about that? 6 catches today, targeted 8 times.
My answer to that would be no, and the reason why I say no is because you're winning ball games. I don't really see much of a problem with how things are going. I know Justin Jefferson is capable of having 14 catch type games.
Yeah, he hasn't had one this year.
No, he
had even, I don't even double digits.
No,
Has he had a double digit?
Not to my recollection. I have to go back,
Right.
but I don't think he might have had one.
You're lucky to remember what breakfast was.
Yeah,
I
that's very true. Yeah, my memory these days is starting to go very much on the decline. But 8 different guys caught a pass today for Minnesota. 8 different guys. I know a lot of the fantasy football players out there, such as myself. If you're a Justin Jefferson owner, if he's on your team,
9. I just looked.
9 catches.
9
today?
catches. Yep, 9 different players. Addison,
9.
Jefferson, Jones,
9.
Naylor, Munt, Oliver.
Powell never caught a pass.
Shearfield.
Though.
What?
Powell didn't catch a pass though.
Well, then why is he listed there?
He probably got a target. So.
Oh, for God's sakes!
2 targets for
Wow, it is 2 targets. That's terrible. Okay.
8 different guys.
Go ahead, you're right.
Catching a pass today.
Sorry, didn't.
For the Vikings. But listen, my answer to that is probably a little bit, but does it matter? It doesn't matter. I don't think that any of the Vikings fans or any of the Vikings players, more importantly, are sitting here thinking, man, we got to feed Justin Jefferson the ball more. And more to the point, when Green Bay closed it to within 6 today, who came up big in that ensuing drive? Justin Jefferson with a 17-yard catch, another catch later in the drive to help keep the chains moving. They know what he's capable of. It's just a matter of, the numbers might not be as gaudy as we're accustomed to seeing, but make no mistake about it, and for all of you watching at home, the only number that matters is the one in the win and loss column. You got 4 of them through 4 games. That's the only number that matters.
Okay, Jefferson already got hurt once this year trying to block. Today, they had him blocking again. They had him blocking on the jet sweep. Come on, this is the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League. Run him out to the other side if you want to lure defenders away. I don't want him blocking people, period. I don't want him getting caught in the wash like he did that other game where he was trying to go back against the grain and got blown up and went down. You don't risk that with him. And then to call a play where they give it to Addison on the jet sweep to Jefferson's side, you already know there's going to be more defenders. We're going to ask Pete Bursis this, by the way, too, because that bugs me. I think
it's a fair point. I think it's a fair observation.
Is that something that's a smart idea? Because Jefferson always attracts double coverage, sometimes triple coverage. So why in the world would you run a play that way to make him block? Instead, take him around the other way. Those 2 defenders follow him, and then you can have Addison do the jet sweep around the corner. Or put Johnny Munt out wide, for goodness sake, so he could block.
I think. Well, if Johnny Munt is split out wide, I think everybody knows what's about to happen because he's not out there to catch passes. But I think that's a very valid concern. I think it's a very valid point. I wouldn't want.
I know Justin says I'm fine. Let me do it.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, and I know that's what he'll say, and I know he's up to the task. But I think that's a very valid observation and critique. I would love to hear what Pete has to say about that. We'll talk to him about that on Vikings postgame tonight.
And you can comment below. We read all your comments throughout the week. So if you think that I'm right, you think, no, he should block, he's a football player, do your job, let us know in the comments section, and we'll respond. We'll respond.
Will we?
Yeah.
Will we? I will not. You might. I will not.
Come on. They're worthy. They're spending their hard-earned time watching you right now. You should respond to these people.
Typically, my responses to people online are never anything good, so I usually keep things to myself in that regard.
All right. Blake Cashman, another huge game today. The guy is just astonishing why Houston would let him go. If he is going to continue on this pace, you're looking at a Pro Bowler. You're looking at a guy that's easily going to whatever they want to do, whatever flag football or jumping jacks they want to do at the end of the year that they call a Pro Bowl. But how does Houston let that guy go away? Were they in a big cash crunch? Because they paid Danielle Hunter.
They sure did.
I mean, I have not looked, and I'm just asking this rhetorically, and I don't expect you to have their salary chart in front of you.
The Houston Texans in front of me.
But is it Flores setting him up and using him, knowing him, or is this just a hot start by Blake Cashman? Because, I mean, we saw him at the University of Minnesota. He was good, but he's had now 2 games where he has just annihilated the competition.
Well, I think one thing that has contributed to that in the last 2 games is the absence of Ivan Pace, who's also a tackling machine in his own right. So maybe Blake Cashman's got to pick up the slack a little bit more with Pace out of the lineup. But I'm with you, Jim. Actually, when that signing was made to bring in Blake Cashman here, I looked at it and I said, like that's okay. That's fine. It didn't. I didn't think to myself, hey, we got Blake Cashman. No disrespect to Blake Cashman. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think this is a guy who is maturing into a great linebacker in this league, and also coupled with the fact that he's playing for a great defensive mind. I don't want to take anything away from the players. I know I've been on here several times, touting Brian Flores, dating all the way back to last year, and how much a believer I am as him as a coach, not just as a coordinator, but as a head coach as well when he eventually gets another head coaching job in this league at some point. But Blake Cashman has really made his name known around here. Like you said, we've seen him at the University of Minnesota, and he was drafted, I believe he was a 5th or 6th round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, by the New York Jets. And, we didn't hear his name too much out in New York. We saw him start to develop a little bit more. But that's another thing in this league where everybody expects instant gratification, not just in this league, but across pro sports entirely. But sometimes guys need a little extra seasoning to mold themselves into the player they need to be. And I think we're seeing an example of that right now with Blake Cashman really rising to the occasion. And you're right. If this pace keeps up, why not? Why not Blake Cashman as a Pro Bowler this year for the NFC?
All right. The other thing that I think has been a real key to this Vikings team is the experience they've added in the secondary. Not going with the youngsters and trying to teach people on the fly. You could see it on the back end with Byron Murphy Jr., with Shaq Griffin, with Gilmore. I mean, these guys made some tremendous plays, breaking up passes, things that, knocking balls free. Of course, the interceptions, that's always the glory play. But just the way they covered people. And was there 1 pass interference today on 52 passing attempts? Was there 1 PI on the Vikings?
Not that I can recall.
I don't recall it. I mean, you think about that.
The Vikings did commit 7 penalties today, but I don't believe pass interference was one of them, to the best of my recollection.
There may have been. There was one where the guy ran over his back. Remember, he was running up behind him. He was going down that far sideline when you were watching on TV. He was going. I think it was Bynum that maybe ran him over.
But even more to the point, the secondary play, like you mentioned. Remember the training camp? When things all started to falling apart, and we're thinking to ourselves, this is the most vulnerable position group here on the Vikings as we're looking at training camp, and we're thinking,
right, it looked like an Achilles heel for the whole season.
It looked like teams were going to be able to throw the ball left and right on this team, but credit to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. We mentioned this last week on the podcast too. He wasted no time in saying, you know what? I need to bring in Shaq Griffin. I need to bring in Stephon Gilmore. Fabian Moreau, who was inactive for today's game, he was also brought in.
They brought in 5.
Right. Kwesi he did not go to sleep at night thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just going to wait and see how the young guys play, how things play out for the young guys. He traded Andrew Booth Jr. to the Dallas Cowboys. It's a credit to him for not sitting on his hands and hoping that young players make a leap. He said to himself, no, we need guys now. We need guys who can contribute right away. And that's part of what I was talking about earlier in the competition factor. It doesn't matter where you were drafted. It doesn't matter how much money you're getting paid. Competition needs to be held at every single position on a week-to-week basis. And I think this is a prime example of that, and they're reaping the rewards of not just sitting on their hands and thinking to themselves, I think the young guys will be okay, when there's no real evidence of that leading up to this season.
And other than quarterback, cornerback, and safety, I think that is where experience really is a critical factor. You can throw rookies back there, second-year players, but I think you need, if you want a defense that's really going to be there, they may not be the fastest anymore, but these guys know positioning. They know how to get into a receiver's head. I think that is a position where you really need experience versus a defensive line versus a linebacker even. Because you saw Ivan Pace Jr. figure it out when he walked in as an undrafted free agent.
The receivers in this league are too good. They're too good. They're too fast. Remember the catch Justin Jefferson made on the sideline where they had a review and just the toe drag to keep it in bounds? not everybody is Justin Jefferson, I understand, but the receiving talent in this league is second to none, and you need guys like that. Like you said, they don't have to be burners in terms of speed or absolutely blanket corners on every play, but understanding the concept and the schemes and understanding, how games move on, how games, progressed like the way it did today. It's again a credit to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah for finding the right guys and for Brian Flores for pressing the right buttons in this scheme that he's drawn up for these guys.
Yeah, and spending the money as well. I mean, $10 million on Gilmore right out of the gate that you need to get him in.
Looking
here
worth it now.
is pretty amazing. Yeah, no doubt about it. And you look at, even though they didn't get sacks today, we already discussed that, just one sack, they were getting pressures and they were getting quarterback hits. Like, I think they hit him 6-7 times, and officially they got 12 quarterback hits.
Yeah.
They were given credit for. So even though they didn't take him all the way to the ground, they were right in his face,
right.
And a couple of those INTs were caused because of that pressure.
The sack is obviously the sexy statistic in terms of defensive, in terms of how you impacted the game defensively. Sacks, interceptions, we all understand that. But quarterback pressure is a statistic and a part of the game that is so underappreciated, because just because you don't get a sack doesn't mean that the quarterback wasn't rattled. And
right.
You want to try to rattle the quarterback. You want to make him think as fast as possibly can. You want to make him move his feet as fast as possibly can. And Minnesota did that today with Jordan Love. And again, Jordan Love, the numbers are going to pop out at you. I get it, 4 touchdowns on the day, 54 pass attempts on the day. But make no mistake about it, he was not comfortable. 3 interceptions on the day.
Yep.
3 interceptions.
10, by the way. I got my numbers mixed again.
10
for 2, but still double digits is a good number.
Double-digit pressures is a great number.
All right, moving forward, London game.
Jets.
Hawkinson.
Who lost today, too, by the way.
Hawkinson is, I believe, available to come off IR that started the season. Do you play him, or do you say, you know what, we got the bye after, let's give him 2 more weeks on the treadmill, put him back at practice, let's go from there? Or do you think that he can be such a game changer that you're going to take him with to London and you're going to put him out on the field against Aaron Rodgers and company?
In my own personal opinion, if he is deemed healthy enough to play, I think he should play.
You're 4-0 now.
Yeah.
You could be 2 games up depending on what happens with Detroit.
Sure. I understand wanting to give him the extra 2 weeks, and I think that probably will pay off for the Vikings in the long run. So I totally get it. If he's healthy enough to come off IR, though, you're gonna have to activate him off IR, because you can't. You're gonna have to activate him off IR now, this week. I should say, coming up this week. Then you have to figure out who's coming off the roster. Are you gonna activate him? I don't know. We're gonna have to cross that bridge on Monday, I believe, Monday and Tuesday of this week. But in terms of, I still stand by what I said. If TJ Hawkinson is activated off injured reserve, or excuse me, the PUP list, if he is deemed healthy enough to play,
right,
I think he should play. I think he should play. It's only going to make your offense better. You're not going to be worse by having TJ Hawkinson in the lineup.
Not.
So I think if he's deemed, and I would imagine if he is healthy enough to play, I would imagine that he would want to play. So I think, yeah, if TJ Hawkinson is activated off the PUP, if everything goes right in the process with the trainers, why not send him out there?
All right, last thing before we let you go. I mean, there were predictions when you first looked at the schedule of 1-5 going into the break.
1-7 even.
Yeah, well, yeah, but going into the bye.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just astounding. And I know we've patted a lot of people on the back, but a month in, do you want to give your player of the month for the month of September?
Oh, wow.
How about that coming out of left field?
Wow.
Darnold has been fabulous. I'll give you some options. Aaron Jones has been fabulous.
Yeah.
Blake Cashman, we've hit him.
Patrick Jones is another name that needs to be mentioned.
Yeah. Or do you give it to Flores, or do you give it to O'Connell for what they have done? I mean, you could say any of those, and I don't think you would be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think the comments would light up with people saying, "Oh my God, are you kidding me, Pierre? What are you thinking here?"
Before I answer that question, I can't believe it's taken us nearly a half hour to acknowledge the fact that Jordan Addison returned today after missing the last 2 games, had a pair of touchdowns, looked great out there as well. So that's another weapon in the pocket for Kevin O'Connell in this offense. But to answer your question, Jim, this is going to sound vanilla, and I hate even saying it out. The fans are going to hate this too. It's just this is a complete team. This is a team. If it's not one guy 1 week, it's another guy the other week. Aaron Jones didn't have a great game. I believe it was last week, or the game against the 49ers. The 49er game didn't have the greatest games. Had a great game today. Had a great game last week. Ivan Pace out of the lineup. Blake Cashman stepping up. Justin Jefferson not really catching double-digit passes, but that's okay.
Underused.
Jordan Addison has 2 touchdown catches on the day. It's a well-balanced machine right now, and I can't really say this guy is carrying this team or this guy is really going out of his way to elevate this team's play. It just seems to be a complete team performance from right now, looking like a complete team.
All right, put your MVP in the comments, and I'll get him to chime in. We'll figure out a way for him to answer you. Maybe you could cut him a video answer. That would be good.
Yeah, that's why I just speak in GIFs and videos, yes. And that's how I speak online, really. No words for anything to be held against me.
All right, where else can they find this? People stumbled across this on YouTube,
yep.
But where else can you find this?
Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And, of course, like Jim mentioned, look for us on the Fox 9 YouTube page. That's primarily where we do our most damage, I think.
Yes, and then also Fox Local, they post it there.
Yep.
And I believe it also pops up on our website, the official website, fox9.com.
Right.
All right, your X for people that want to just chirp right at you so you'll respond?
At the Nouj, Fox 9, Nouj.
All right, Ahmad Hicks, he'll be back maybe next week. We'll see if, I don't know, is he going to get up that early to watch the game?
I don't know. We're not sending anybody to London, so everybody should be here at this point.
Maybe that'll change this week.
Maybe.
Unbeaten.
You
Hey,
have your passport ready?
It's always ready.
All right, good.
All right, that'll do it for us. Your Vikings are sitting atop the division at 4-0 with a 31-29 victory over Green Bay. If the Vikings win just one more game the whole season, it's the rematch with the Packers at US Bank Stadium, and a lot of Viking fans are pleased. So half of the mission has been completed for those folks. That'll do it for Pierre Noujaim. I'm Jim Rich. Thanks for following along, and we will see you next time as the Vikings head to London.